Oh my God, this is profesh. Look at our little setup. Hi, I'm Molly. No, I'm just kidding.
Hi, it's so great to finally meet
I've
you.
never met you before.
We have specialized in a certain kind of awareness. We say, oh my God, isn't that gorgeous?
Welcome to Vita, where we come back to self. I'm your host, Molly. This space is for those passionate about exploring the depths of the human experience, where we dive into conversations that nurture the soul and expand the mind. Tune into your frequency, and let's discover what it means to live a more authentic and fulfilled life. In this episode, we talk about the importance of nature and getting back in touch with primitive techniques in survival living. We talk about the significance of getting outside and taking space from everyday distractions, how it can bring you closer to yourself and the beauty of life, and Rhys's incredible story on curing Lyme disease. I want to thank Rhys for opening up and sharing his story through Lyme disease. For anyone going through any illness, you are not alone. Thanks for listening, everyone, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm honored, honestly. Happy to have you here.
I'm honored as well. First podcast
Yeah.
that you've done, and I'm the first guest, and
Yeah.
that's kind of a big deal.
Pretty stoked.
Yeah, very honored and touched that you picked me to be your first, and I see big things coming your way with
Thanks,
this
Rhys.
podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We're flowing. We're gonna see what happens, but
Yeah.
I'm just pretty stoked to have you on and talk about honestly everything you've been going through the past couple years. It's been you've had a lot of big life adjustments.
Yeah, for sure.
One in particular that we'll go over, and but let's go ahead and start off. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. And I know who you are and what you do, but for everyone else out there, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us all what you do.
Yeah, I'm Rhys Fontaine from
Hey,
East
Rhys.
Tennessee. Hey. Yeah, and I teach primitive survival stuff in a nutshell. Traditional skills, earth skills. I mean, it's got a bunch of different names. But yeah, essentially, I teach those skills that, are responsible for everyone being here today, and just kind of going back to the basics. I work at a school called Boulder Outdoor Survival School. Here in Utah. We're actually sitting in the field area right now as we speak.
Beautiful area.
Beautiful place.
Yeah.
I'm very honored to be here and
Me
feel
too.
very blessed to have found this place. But we take people out on field courses, and we have a few other specialty courses as well. But basically we kind of simulate people being in kind of a survival situation where they're kind of stripped down. They don't have hardly anything other than some clothes, a metal cup, and a little sheet. And people go without food. They go without their normal comforts, and then slowly over time they learn more and more skills and they acquire more and more items.
Right.
And they kind of just learn the whole process of the basic process of survival. There's a week-long course, there's a 14-day and a 28-day. And a lot of those skills are hard skills, but a lot of them are soft skills, just learning how to connect back with people, how to disconnect from technology, how to just kind of get back grounded, connect with their food, stuff like that. And that's the stuff that I really love.
Yeah, slowing people down and really stepping back and kind of coming back to
reality.
This is the reality.
This is it.
Yeah.
People always just like, oh, when we go back to the real world, I'm like, this is the real world.
This is the real world. Yeah. You actually have it flipped.
Yeah, they're both real, but in
Yeah.
a sense, this is more based in the laws of the universe.
Yeah, so interesting. And I mean, I know I grew up around you, and my brother's doing it, so I'm in touch with it to an extent, but I mean, ultimately, how did you get into this? How was this something that you were like, this is a field that I want to drop into and really educate people on? What was like your driving force?
I don't really know for sure the moment or anything, but I was young. I was into it since I was like a very little kid. And I think it kind of started with like a fascination of animals.
Yeah.
and stuff. And I
Right.
was real into like Steve Irwin,
Yeah.
as a kid, and Crocodile Hunter, like,
Right.
and just obsessed with going out in the woods and looking for snakes and looking for frogs and crawdads and building forts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of kept going, and it's kind of I think we were having a conversation just the other day. It's
Yeah.
like you don't really pick what you get into. You just kind of have to discover what it is that's meaningful to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a kid, I was just drawn to this kind of stuff. And I just, always had that deep passion. I just felt the best when I was out in the woods,
Yeah.
sitting around a fire, making a little shelter, playing in the creek. And I just wanted to keep doing it. As I got older,
wanna make
and older,
this my
I wanted to be a
life.
big
Yeah.
kid, building shelters and
Yeah.
playing in the woods.
Yeah.
So
No, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like that's all of our childhood was surrounded with. But it's crazy to know, I mean, as a kid, and I feel like in reality, the outside world, I feel like not many people know of this original way of living, right? Like, I don't think many people do, honestly. I think it's like, and a lot of people don't know how to start a fire, don't know how to build a shelter, don't know, maybe many kids never played outside, So this is something that we were able to have at a young age, which is amazing. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of see now that I'm here in Utah and checking out where you're working, everything. I'm like, wow, there's a full community of it, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to kind of be involved in it and almost want to get it out more, being someone who kind of isn't as much in the community. You know what I mean? People need to understand this way of living. Not only is it helping who we are as humans mentally and physically, I think this is the way it's kind of all starting to come back to. Would you agree? Like, this is obviously knowledge that we all need to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good points, and I think we're definitely at a pivotal point, in our society and our civilization. And I feel like as we get further and further from nature, the draw to come back gets stronger and stronger. It's
yeah.
like a rubber band almost, and you can only twist it so far before it snaps back on itself. And
Yeah,
we're kind
so
of
true.
at that point where the connecting back with where we came from is really what we need,
Yeah.
and it's connecting back to who we are in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, because we've kind of
Absolutely.
gone far away from it. We're that, but we're also this, and people have, kind of lost that sense of that part of themselves. A
Right.
different part of you comes out when you're in nature, in a raw place like that. Your perspective shift, things change, and it's like a different part of you. That part that came from it comes to the forefront.
Yeah.
And it's easy to distract and move away from that when we're not out here. But I think now more than ever, people are craving quote unquote simplicity,
Yeah, absolutely.
and just kind of stuff that makes more sense. Not that it's simple to live out here, it's kind of complex in a lot of ways, but the whole philosophy and idea behind this way of living is in some sense simple. It's like you are hungry, you need to get food.
Yeah.
You're thirsty, you need to get water.
Right.
Weather's coming in, you need to get something over
Shelter.
your head.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that makes sense to people. It's hard to argue with it.
Yeah.
It's hard to resent it. But it's easier to question everything when you're more and more disconnected and things seem more and more layered.
Yeah.
And so I think this just makes sense in a world that's making less and less sense
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah, it's growing in a whole nother direction. Being able to really, just honestly come back to the basics. I need water.
Yeah.
I need food.
Yeah.
I need shelter. End of story, and that's your day. And then your existence is honestly just being to survive.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of living.
Yeah.
And then, so much comes from that. I'm super interested in hearing, have you had any moments out in the field that have been, I don't really want to use the word like an awakening, but have you had any intense times out in the field that have really kind of shifted your perspective in what you're doing, or maybe have grown your interest even more?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint exact moments, but there's periods,
Yeah.
and there is some moments, but I mean, I look back at my student course before I worked here, and I
Mhm.
just came out and took a course as a student, and that was a big shift.
Yeah.
That experience there and being, I'd always done this stuff. I was really into the what quote unquote hard skills, which
Right.
is like, making traps, making fire with sticks, navigation with a map and compass, stuff like that. That's like very tangible. But when I was on my student course, although I was still very interested in that stuff, the deep connection with other people, the shift in perspective, and the mental fortitude stuff that came to the forefront in that experience when I finally was really in a long-term kind of raw experience like
Right.
that, kind of shifted my perspective on what's important in terms of survival and what's like the most important key factors
Yeah.
in that kind of way of living, which also apply to life, making you a solid person in just life. And so that was a big shift there. It's just kind of, realizing how being in that state puts everything back into perspective. When I was out there, it's easy to distract yourself in the front country, but out there it's like all of the stuff that you've been ignoring that's really important comes to the forefront. Like, oh man, I haven't called my grandparents in a while.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I really care about these people, and I've been so distracted trying to accomplish this goal or that goal and being obsessed with this thing and that thing that I forgot about these basic important things in front of me. I haven't been nurturing these relationships.
Right.
Yeah, I've been ignoring these things in my life. And it's like when you're out there and you no longer have all those things, those all become obvious. And I realized how spiritual really this experience is.
Absolutely.
And then how much that also applies to everyone else. I was on a 7-day last year where a lightning storm came in, and
Oh wow.
it was all around us, just boom, crack, like within hundreds of yards of where we were sitting. You could feel the ground shaking from
Holy
the
cow.
strikes, and it went on for about 45 minutes on top of us, and it was super scary.
Whoa.
And I was praying, and the students all scattered to their spots. Some of them made it to their little shelters. Some of them couldn't find their way, and they just sat through it.
Oh wow.
And when it finally passed, we brought everyone in, called everyone in, and people were soaked to the bone. It was late at night. It was super cold.
Oh gosh.
And it became like a real situation.
Yeah.
And we had to get a
Like a
huge
life or
fire
death
going. Yeah.
situation in a way. Yeah.
Pull out the safety gear and get a fire going and like warm everybody up. And it was super nerve-wracking for me having all these people. I was like, oh wow, these people's lives are really in my hands. Like these people, some of these people are like shaking uncontrollably. And but when that course finally came to an end, it continued to rain for several more days, and everyone was soaked and miserable. Every single person cried at the end of that course.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
everyone was touched, and that was a very powerful experience because I just realized how much. Even though it was hard, people were hungry, people were tired, people had been through so much, they were so nourished from that experience.
Yeah.
And it brings me back to that quote in the Bible where Christ says, man can't live on bread alone. We're kind of living on bread alone in a large sense.
Yeah.
And how much this really nourishes the soul, which is a part that I kind of always ignored growing up, or I
Yeah.
didn't realize how true it was.
How important it really is. Yeah. I know it all kind of hits you once you really start to live life, I guess,
Yeah.
as kids or teens and college years, we're just kind of floating around. But yeah, once you really start to get into the nitty gritty, you're like, oh shit, yeah,
Totally.
community. I need,
Yeah.
that sense. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so you've been teaching for a while now. You're over here in Utah, and hopefully you've got some plans on bringing this culture, this community, these skills to the East Coast as well, and testing out over there. Do you have any opportunities, or do you anything for the viewers if anyone's over on the East Coast interested in taking any courses from you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been running some courses back
Awesome.
east. So I do run workshops from time to time. If people want to get a hold of me, I do have an Instagram.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
be sure to put those in the
yeah.
in the description. Yeah,
But
YouTube and Instagram. Yep.
yeah, I do animal processing workshops where we'll slaughter a sheep and we'll try to use the whole animal in a few days. And then whatever else is left over, we split up amongst the group.
Awesome.
Done fire making workshops, carving, woodworking workshops, stuff like that. And then hopefully I'm going to start getting a primitive skills gathering going, but that's probably quite a bit in the future at this point. But yeah,
Sweet.
definitely been trying to get stuff going back east, and
Yeah.
do have things from time to time. So
Cool.
yeah,
Well, I'm excited. I mean, I've had so much fun being out here with you
yeah, I've
and
had
Sammy
fun
the
too.
past couple days, just like even learning most simplest things, you know. And then just also sitting with you guys. It's a joy and really magical in itself. But yeah, learning more. I'm stoked to. I gotta learn how to start my own fire from scratch.
Oh yeah,
That's on my list.
you can do
That's
it.
pretty essential. I could probably do it, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm like, yeah, stoked to be here and yeah, be doing this with you. Well, I'd love to share. You've been through a really big life altering, I don't even know what to call it, situation with Lyme disease. And I'd really love to hear more about that so we can kind of share and spread awareness with this platform if you're interested in speaking a little bit about it, how that was for you, and if you're still having symptoms, honestly, and kind of how it all started.
Yeah, well, luckily I'm not having any symptoms, and I haven't in a
That's
while.
awesome.
But yeah, it was a few years ago. I got it in DC when I was working with kids, teaching survival stuff up there, and slowly developed weird symptoms here and there. Kind of started off with like just really bad headaches, and then it moved to like really bad light sensitivity. My neck seized up. I could barely turn my head from side to side. Just a lot of physical body pain, and then just general low energy and
Yeah.
brain fog.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like one thing after another, symptom-wise, compounding on itself. And for a while, I didn't realize what was going on.
Yeah.
I kept thinking maybe I just went too hard in the gym and I strained my neck,
Yeah.
and now my neck's stiff, and now I'm having headaches, and my light sensitive, and
Yeah.
but then it just wouldn't never go away, and it kept getting worse.
Was this like months? This time frame was like months or weeks?
Yeah, over the course of a couple months.
Okay.
And then at some point I started like really feeling just physically ill on
Yeah.
top of everything, and I started having like bullseye rashes appearing on my body.
Oh, wow.
So there's usually one where the tick bites you initially, and if you catch it early, you can typically treat it right away with antibiotics and it's not a problem. But if
Yeah.
it bites you, you don't see the initial bullseye rash or don't get one, you'll develop symptoms, and the symptoms will progress, and then it becomes disseminated in your body, which means it's left the bloodstream and it's moved into organs and other tissues in the body. And at that point, you'll start just getting random bullseye rashes all over your
wow.
body. And those are the ones I first started noticing. I never noticed the initial one. And that's when I knew I had Lyme. I went and got tested. Sure enough, I had it. And I started antibiotics. But nothing seemed to work, and I got on more antibiotics, and it still didn't seem to do anything. I got tested for more tick-borne diseases, and I found out I had multiple other tick-borne diseases,
wow.
Bartonella and Babesia, which are also very hard to get rid of, especially in conjunction with Lyme. So I went down this huge rabbit hole and fell into this like nightmare of like trying to figure out how to get out of this situation, and realizing how big of a problem it is and how many other people are suffering from it.
Yeah.
And it completely derailed my life. I lost my job, or I quit my job because I couldn't keep working. I had to go back home, move in with my mom, and just things continued to progress. I mean, I started getting really bad cognitive stuff, which was the scariest thing, kind of like constant states of deja vu, derealization, depersonalization, kind of like dementia-like symptoms, just couldn't find words, couldn't complete thoughts.
Yeah.
And that continued to progress. I lost a lot of weight. I
Wow.
started developing nervous system problems where I started like twitching throughout my body, having like muscle twitching, random places. It would like affect my arm, and my arm would twitch for weeks on end, but then it would be shooting all throughout my body. Just random, everyone's had like a bicep twitch here and there
Yeah.
in their life.
But like a constant.
But this was just constant.
Yeah.
There was never more than a couple seconds that would
Wow.
go on where something wasn't shooting off in my
Yeah.
body. And that went on for many, many months.
Yeah.
And I was on quadruple antibiotics for close to a year. So 4 different
yeah.
antibiotics at full dose
Holy cow.
for a
wrecking
year
your
straight. And then they would
gut.
switch them up to 4 different antibiotics, and then switch them up to switch out a few of them to different ones. And it didn't seem like anything was working, and I kind of just gave up a lot of hope at a certain point and realized like all these other people who I've talked to, my productive years are probably behind me, and I'm probably just going to be chronically ill for the rest of my life.
And at this point, you were how old?
23.
Going through this, yeah. So very, very young.
Yeah.
And to have that mindset of like, well, I'm done.
This is my life now.
Is really
being
hard
sick.
at that age. Yeah.
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 And it derailed everything.
Yeah.
And one day I was watching a podcast, and some guy by the name of Paul Stamets was talking about using mushrooms to regenerate nerves, specifically lion's mane mushroom, but also even more so magic mushrooms or psilocybin mushrooms. And at that point, I was looking for anything different than what I was doing. And something about it spoke to me, and I was like, I want to give this a go and see what happens.
Let's give it a go, yeah.
I got a hold of some lion's mane pretty easily, started popping those. No, not really any significant change at all.
Now, was it the mushroom itself, or were you was it like some type of supplement, like a powder or?
It was a supplement
Okay.
of the fruiting body and mycelium
Okay.
mixed together. And then I eventually managed to get a hold of some psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah.
And which is a little hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
But I did get some. And then one night was just like, well, I'm just going to try these out. I have been in a fasted kind of state. At that point, I'd been trying like a really strict ketogenic diet to see if that would help with my cognitive stuff. And it did a little bit, but everything was still there. And it wasn't like a real solution to my problem. But I was really fasted, and I had gotten these mushrooms, and I ate them that night, and I had a very, very intense, much more intense than I was expecting to have.
Yeah.
Journey.
Had in the past and whatnot. Yeah.
And it was very anxiety provoking at first, seeing wheels and spirals and patterns forming everywhere. And I realized how serious of a situation I was in, how much of my life was hanging in the balance, how I had a likely future of just being chronically ill. And the seriousness of my whole situation just kind of like really came to light. And so it was terrible. I was like, what did I do? Why did I do this?
I went too hard.
This was a terrible idea. This is going to make any difference. Like, this is dumb. And I was having like panic attacks after panic attack, and, walking back and forth on the floor.
Wow.
Just trying to breathe and calm myself down. And after a while of that, I don't know how long, I eventually sat down and was just focusing on trying to breathe and relax. And eventually I was sitting there, and I was having the twitch shooting off of my body, which at that point was probably the most persistent, annoying thing about this whole disease. Everything else was terrible too, but this thing was just always in my face.
Yeah.
And so
physically you're like, what the hell? Quit.
It was so annoying.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how annoying. And I was like, I'm going to try to do something about this twitch.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just see if something
And this is
can
in
happen.
full on mid-trip, right?
Tripping hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I start focusing in on this twitch. And I start, I can't remember what it was that was twitching. Say it was my thigh at this point. Focused in on it. And as I focused in, I felt my mind kind of sink into that muscle. It was a feeling. It's hard to describe with words. But I did feel eventually my mind lock into that part of my body. It was just a sensation. And when that sensation occurred, the twitch stopped in my thigh as soon as that sensation occurred. But then it sprung up somewhere else in my body.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, huh. And I did the same thing with this other muscle group.
Wow.
And as soon as I felt that sensation of the locking in mentally, it stopped and it sprung up somewhere else.
Wow.
Yeah. So I start chasing this twitch throughout my
Wow.
body, and it was pretty shocking to me because up to this point nothing had any effect on this twitch. I
Yeah.
tried so many different things. I even like would hook up like electrodes to muscle
Oh,
groups
really?
that were
Yeah.
going and shocking those muscles. I mean, that's how desperate I was to try to do something to it, and nothing had effect. Taking huge doses of magnesium that specifically absorb into muscles to try to calm that, and nothing would do anything, and none of the antibiotics had any effect on it.
So the
But all of a
antibiotics
sudden,
weren't doing anything at this point.
at this point, no.
You're just
Yeah.
like, these things aren't, yeah.
They're useless. I'd given
Yeah.
up actually on them
Really?
a
Yeah.
couple weeks prior to this.
Okay.
And
Because you were taking 4 at this point, so you're just like,
yeah,
cold turkey, antibiotics, I'm done with you guys.
just like it's like if it hasn't done anything in
Yeah.
9 months in, then it's not going to do anything 10 months in.
Right, yeah.
And so I was focusing in on it and chasing it around. I was like, this is really interesting because this is having an effect,
Yeah.
like a clear effect.
Mentally, too, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, shit, all right, I'm seeing this almost like line of what to follow
Yeah.
to cure this.
I was like, this is really weird. Like, somehow me being in this state, I'm able to kind of manipulate this, even though it's not going away. But I continued chasing it, and as I'm chasing it, my eyes are closed because I'm trying to focus and I'm hallucinating. And so I'm seeing all these geometric patterns and stuff, but out of the patterns start to form like images. And one of them's like of an archetypal kind of Christ figure, and one of them's of like an archetypal demonic figure, like a devil figure. And as I'm chasing this, this twitch, those figures that emerge start to like physically battle each other in my mind's eye.
Wow.
And it's corresponding with this twitch in my body.
That's crazy.
So as I sink into a muscle group, as I'm feeling that sensation of sinking in to a muscle group that's twitching, God would get the upper hand on the devil. And then right as I would sink in, God would be about to kill the devil. And so he would either have it like down where he has his like foot on his throat with a big rock about to smash his head. At one point he had a trident, was about to spear him through the neck.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like right as I sink in and
To that muscle.
connect in, God would come down with like a crushing blow. But right before it would happen, the devil somehow would maneuver its way out of the situation and get away. And as soon as that would happen, the twitch would spring up somewhere else in my body. And this just kind of repeated over and over again, battle after battle after battle of getting right on the edge and then him getting away and the twitch springing up again. And
So he's just going to different parts of your body.
all throughout, yeah.
Wow.
And this went on for a long time. I don't know how long of time.
In
is
this
weird.
one specific trip?
Yeah, just
Holy
all
cow.
one experience, and I'm just laying there. This is probably like an hour long of me laying there with my
You're
eyes
probably
closed.
exhausted trying
It was
to
exhausting.
get through this.
I got up at one point out of pure like frustration.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, if I could just hold this thing down
Yeah.
and kill him.
Yeah.
If
I'm
God
done
could
with
kill
you.
this devil,
Yeah.
this twitch would be over.
Wow.
Like, and I know it would be. It's like it's definitely this demon that's causing this thing. But I can't do it. Like, he's just getting away.
Holy shit, that's
And
crazy.
I gave up, and I had been laying in silence this entire time, and I turned on some music. There's this song called "To Build a Home" by the Cinematic Orchestra that started playing. And as it started to play, it's got a like real reflective beginning, and it works its way to an epic crescendo. And as that reflective beginning started, I started to have just flashes of images in my mind of all the worst moments of my Lyme disease. And it was really weird. I've never had this happen. I've done some mushrooms and stuff in the past.
Yeah.
This is like a different spirit was there, and as the experience felt different. But I have never had this before. It was like flashes of images of me outside of my body, looking at myself during all these horrible moments of my Lyme disease. From me finding out in the doctor's office that I had it, from me doing antibiotics and realizing they weren't working, and staying up late on the internet, getting nervous, reading people's accounts years in, going on and on. Specifically horrible night where I'm like crying in my room, cursing God, for taking my life away from me, and all this, just all these, the particularly bad moments, one after another.
It's like a little book
Boom,
that you were just
boom,
checking.
boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, from like in like chronological order from like early
Wow.
on, working
Little
its way up.
timeline.
Yeah. And I was experiencing all the emotions of those moments as though
Mm.
they were happening again. But it was within a flash, you know, I would experience that, like that same visceral feeling. And so it's just a hurricane of like all the worst moments and all the worst feelings of all of my Lyme disease happening at once as the, you know, song was starting to like work its way. And eventually the song started to build. And as the song started to build, as soon as it started to build, I got like a different flash, and the flash felt different. And I don't really remember these images, to be honest. They
Yeah.
it happened so fast. I remember a few of them, but not many. But I just remember it was one I didn't recognize, and it had a different feeling with it. And it was really brief, and it was just of relief for a second. And then it went back to more of the bad moments of my disease. And
wow.
as it worked its way more and more to the peak of the song, more and more of these flashes were of a nature that I didn't recognize, that had a feeling of relief,
Oh,
of you're
wow.
okay, of everything's over, like,
Oh my
and it
gosh,
was
that's
crazy.
so cool.
And I couldn't, the only one I don't remember any of the flashes except for one. And I was out in the wilderness, and there was someone next to me, and we were walking. And I just said to that person, yeah, I remember when I had Lyme. And then the next flash
Whoa.
came. And that was like, I remember that one because it clued me in that, oh, in these flashes, it's a time that's yet to happen. And in this time, I'm better.
Holy shit.
Or at
You're
least,
getting the whole story.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're seeing what you obviously have already processed, but you're also seeing something that hasn't even, that's coming now, obviously, but yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like I just was like, oh, okay, that's why this feeling is different, because in these
Wow.
flashes I am better, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's not now. And it's perhaps the future. I don't know. I mean, it was so fast that if something was to happen in real life, I wouldn't recognize it.
Yeah.
But at least in my mind's eye, it was appearing to be that way.
And during that time, it's like you were probably just grabbing towards any type of hope at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have just been a construct of my mind to
Yeah.
pull me
Keep you
into the right
going, yeah,
mindset
yeah.
to keep me going.
Yeah.
But yeah, as it got closer to the peak, it was only these flashes that I didn't recognize, with this feeling of complete and total relief
Wow.
attached to them. And then
That's
the peak
beautiful.
of the song hit, and my whole body seized into an uncontrollable ball. Like every muscle group tightened in my body uncontrollably, and I went into like a super tight fetal position, and I let out a huge yell, and it just let go, and I fell backwards. And then my body sat straight up, and it was like I had no control over my body at this point. My spine became very straight, and I felt a pressure build at the base of my spine, and it kept building and building. And I was like, I don't know what is going on. I'm losing control of my body right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm having like a health emergency or what, but it doesn't feel necessarily like a health emergency.
Yeah.
It feels like something else is happening. And that pressure built and built, and then it eventually just like it rocketed up my spinal column
Wow.
in a twisting motion, like a spiral. And it was just like this band of energy rocketing up my spine and into my head. And all I saw was a bright white light when it entered into my head. And at that
gosh.
point, I actually thought I was having a stroke. Like, I
Holy
was not,
cow, this is insane.
yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I just like basically was just there in this experience.
Wow.
And then that subsided, and I could see, and everything was fine, and the trip ended on a dime.
Really?
It was over at that point.
Right after
basically.
that?
Yeah, I mean, it went to there, and I was no longer hallucinating. I felt completely back into my body, and I've never had that happen either.
Medicine, man.
But I did have some effects still, and but it was just of a feeling of complete clarity and bliss. And I was like, wow, something really profound just happened to me. I don't know what it
Yeah.
means. I don't know where it's going to go, but something profound just happened. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, I feel so good right now. Like
Wow,
I
that's
feel like
awesome.
amazing. And I've never felt this good or clear in my life.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think it's possible
You're
to
like, what
feel
the heck?
any better than I do right now.
Wow.
And then I would get a wave of, and it would just get better. And it was just like another wave of bliss through my system.
Oh
and
my
then I would say
God.
to myself, okay, there's no way that you can get better than this feeling now. And then
Right.
another wave would come. And I'd be
Really?
like, okay,
What the
now
heck is
there's
going
no
on?
comprehensible way that they could be better. And it just kept coming and coming. And it was just wave after wave.
This is all within like minutes or hours?
A couple of hours, like
Wow.
within minutes of that experience, it's, immediately it began. But then it went on for a couple of hours, these waves. And I was just sitting there in complete silence,
Just like
by
your
myself,
grin's getting bigger and
just
bigger and
smiling
bigger and
and
bigger.
super happy.
Yeah.
And then I realized the twitch wasn't happening.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, wow. For the first time in 9 months, I'm not twitching out of control.
Yeah.
And
cow.
I went to bed that night after just sitting there in bliss for hours, and got up the next morning, and I just felt kind of good. I felt clear. And I went and I just ate breakfast. I just was like, wow, I just feel amazing. The twitch is still not here. And I noticed my lymph nodes, which have been huge in my groin this entire time, bulging out of my groin since I had Lyme disease. They were noticeably smaller. Still
Wow.
big, but smaller. And then over the course of a week, my neck stiffness completely loosened up. The clarity continued to persist. All of the brain fog and stuff that I had before subsided. And my lymph nodes progressively got noticeably smaller every day.
Oh my goodness.
Until about a week to 10 days in, I felt completely normal, and like myself again.
Oh my goodness.
And I was back to like running and
Wow.
working out. And
After what, like 9 months of not doing any of this,
just
maybe?
feeling terrible.
Yeah.
And there's times I would try to get out on days that I felt good, but it was never good, and I would feel terrible afterwards. And then all of a sudden now I'm just like completely back to my normal life.
That's
And completely
crazy.
back to feeling normal, except even better, like more
Wow.
clarity than I'd had even prior to getting Lyme
Yeah.
at that time. And eventually that like super elevated state of clarity and stuff wore kind of down, and then I was kind of just left in a more normal place, and that I am now, where I just feel like myself before being sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that did it.
That one night did it. Yeah.
That's insane.
It wasn't a series of events. It wasn't a series of trips. It wasn't over a long period of time. There was
just
one event.
the magic of medicine,
Yeah.
of mushrooms.
Yeah, and a perspective shift.
I mean, yeah, and totally.
And
yeah.
that it led to. And that's
Wow.
what I don't think, I think they facilitated something
Yeah.
that needed to happen within.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it.
That is
That's why I'm here now.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's
it was crazy.
So that was like, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah, 5 years ago. And you've had no symptoms of Lyme since.
no.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic.
And that's really awesome. Yeah, this is honestly such a freaking inspiring story. It's like, yeah, I can only imagine how you want to get this out there to really, bring awareness to other people who may still be living with Lyme to this day,
Oh yeah,
or
a lot
have
of
been for
people.
years. Yeah. Because don't they say it's kind of like a non-curable disease?
Yeah, once it becomes chronic, they say
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's nothing really that can be done for most of those people. So,
Well.
but there's a lot we
There's
don't
hope.
know.
Yeah.
So I think I know it's possible,
Yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
not easy, and I don't know how to. I don't think it's like you take mushrooms and you're cured.
Yeah.
But there
A lot of
is
things that go into
something
it.
more that can happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that we don't know about diseases and how they manifest in the body and what that all means. And so
Yeah, and
There's a
everyone's
lot.
bodies are different too. So you never know. Some people antibiotics might work for them, or
definitely.
this could work for someone else. It's beautiful to test that though, and be able to understand that there are other ways of trying to cure something that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Wow, so I guess after that you just kind of got back up to it. You're like, well, let me just get back up and running and
Yeah.
back to work and back to what my life's all about, and only growing from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
just got back out here and started doing what I
What you love.
was imagining myself doing the whole time I was sick.
Yeah, and then all those little beautiful timeline hits that you were getting of walking in nature with someone, like, I remember when I had Lyme. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's happened.
It might have happened.
Yeah, or
Definitely
maybe
had
it's to
that
come.
conversation with plenty of people
Yeah.
walking out in the nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've had some beautiful conversations over the past couple days of, yeah, just kind of life in itself and getting through some really tough times. And yeah, it's really beautiful to see you on the other end of this and stoked to continually pushing to be better. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I think about it every day.
Yeah.
Thank
Grateful
God
for
every
it.
day.
Yeah.
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 It's definitely the most powerful thing I've
Yeah.
ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
It's changed
Yeah,
my
that's what I was
shift on
gonna
everything.
I was
My
gonna
perspective
ask.
on everything.
If this is kind of, yeah, a big breaking point that you've had in your life and at such an early age, honestly.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look back at it, it's the worst thing I ever went through, but it's kind of the best thing I've ever went through now that it's over.
Yeah.
And there's kind of my life pre-Lyme and my life post-Lyme,
Mm-hmm.
and my whole perspective on life and myself and health, and it's completely, and God is,
Yeah.
is different.
Yeah. You've got a whole new outlook and whole new person that
In
you're
a lot
living
of ways.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, Rhys. I'm obviously so stoked that you no longer have symptoms and have gone through it. It's awesome. Really wanted to share that story, something that I know I've known about since you've been in it, just because we're so close.
Yeah.
But it's good to get it out. One last thing I'd love to ask you, and for the viewers, is kind of going back to the primitive skills and survival. Anything, if someone's interested in getting into this field or wanting to learn more about it, is there any advice that you would give them on kind of starting out? Or honestly, just learning the basic needs of survival?
Yeah, I mean, just get outside,
it.
start trying some stuff, start, bringing out your inner child. And
Yeah.
if you're curious about places to start, you got YouTube,
Got
you
YouTube.
there's primitive skills gatherings all over the country with some of the best people you'll ever meet in your life. Some of the bigger ones are Winter Count and Rabbit Stick.
Yeah.
There's Buckeye, Between the Rivers. A bunch of these different gatherings that draw in hundreds of people.
Awesome.
That you can go and you can get involved in the community and you can learn from some amazing people. There's lots of survival schools such as BOSS, Boulder Outdoor Survival School, where I work now, that you can look into. But there's a ton of different avenues and paths out there. Most important thing is just
You just get outside.
just get outside.
Just get outside,
and,
people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's
Yeah.
a great place to start.
It really is. That's awesome. Well, I'm stoked that you were able to do this with me and chat about a couple things. And
I'm curious.
yeah, what you got, Rhys? What you got for me?
What do you like about this stuff?
About primitive skills?
Yeah, just like, this kind of stuff. I mean, you're a pretty earthy person.
Yeah,
And,
I like to think I am.
And, you've been drawn to this kind of lifestyle in a lot of ways. And we've been out here the last couple days doing some stuff. And
Yeah, I'm loving it.
you're interested in coming to some of this, like some of these gatherings, like Winter
gatherings.
Count this winter.
Yeah.
Like what is it that draws you to it?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
No, I think honestly it's something, as I mentioned, I've been surrounded by it for as long as I can remember with you guys, you, Sammy, Kelly, and never just kind of being around it, right? It was always just kind of within me because I was surrounded by it, but it wasn't anything that I physically kind of put effort into doing. But I think over the years, you really learn about what's important. And now more than ever, I feel like there's a massive shift with the world and with people. And it's like, all you want to do is really just kind of get in nature and be present and learn more about yourself and what Mother Nature can provide for you. And yeah, I think the biggest draw for me is just having the skills for yourself, educating yourself in how to start a fire, how to build a shelter, I would love to learn how to freaking do a hide, you know, like these are skills that will only benefit you moving forward in life and with what's happening. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the beginning for me within this. It's like something I've been around, but I feel like the past couple days, honestly, I've been way more interested than I ever have been. And I'm now like, yeah, excited to go to a gathering and maybe do a sheep hide with you, a sheep processing, maybe next year or this fall or something. We'll find a time. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of step into that and learn more about it, honestly.
Nice.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into this stuff with you and
Yeah.
to tan a hide with you. And
It'd be fun to do like a 7-day with you and Sammy with
Yeah.
nothing.
for sure.
Need it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
let's
it'd be
put it
cool.
on the put it on the calendar.
Let's put it on the calendar.
Yeah, for real though.
Sweet.
Thank
Well,
you,
thanks
Molly.
so much, Rhys. Really appreciate it. I'll be sure to share your Instagram, your YouTube. If you guys have any questions about Lyme disease, or if anyone out there listening has it, and you know of someone who has it and has been going through anything, feel free to reach out. I know Rhys is more than
Absolutely.
happy to
Yeah.
share any type of insight.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing would make me more happy than to give other people help with
yeah.
this Lyme disease stuff. It's a commitment I made to God. If I was to ever get better, I
Yeah.
would be there for other people. And
That's
so
awesome.
as many people or as much time
Yeah.
as you need, I'm here for
Yeah.
you.
I love it. And that's what we're all here about, you know?
Yeah.
Just helping each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone's out there listening interested, feel free to reach out. Same with getting in touch with Rhys with any primitive survival technique questions or interest. We're here, living in the nature, living in the where we're meant to be.
Yeah.
It's been Fly City over by us the whole time.
It's crazy. They're all on me,
crazy.
not on you. I must
You're also in the sun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Rhys.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Molly.
it. Let's go make some breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
I'll see you over in the kitchen area.
All right.
All right.
on.
See you. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Peace out, folks.
I'll see you guys in the next episode.
We have specialized in a certain kind of awareness. We say, oh my God, isn't that gorgeous?